All right, good morning. We're live on YouTube. I was just waiting for the go-ahead from Troy to come in and say, "Come on, Scott, let's get rolling." I'm only 60 seconds late, so we scheduled it for 8:35, and we're ready to go. Let me bring in our Facebook groups, Atlanta Falcons on SI and Scott Kennedy Sports, and we'll get those going, and we'll be good to go here on a Friday morning, an aftermath episode, the day after the NFL draft. Welcome in, everybody. This is the Falcons Podcast, and one of the reasons we like to say make sure you subscribe is because every once in a while we go live when you're not necessarily expecting it. We do go live every Monday and Wednesday, but we went live on Thursday night. Guess what? We went live on Thursday night again after the Falcons traded back into the first round and surprised a lot of people. I think the initial knee-jerk reaction on that was they traded a first and a second just to get back into the first. No, that's not what happened. We'll get into that though, and then this morning we're having an aftermath episode after we've had a chance to kind of sleep on it. I'm still wired though. I'm not tired. I'll be tired later, but I'm not tired now. I'm kind of wired up from last night, Nick. I don't know about you.
I'm very lucky I'm here because I think I hit the snooze on my alarm about 13 times. So I woke up. I'm like, man, why is my alarm going off? Oh crap! I can say that on here. I think it's 5:20 a.m. I gotta go, and I need my coffee. So here we are. I did that. Popped on the Terry Fontenot, Raheem Morris press conference. Always fun to hear them talk. Very personable duo there. And they were feeling pretty good about themselves, adding 2 pass rushers and making this team and this defense much more formidable up front with a lot more speed. And I keep saying it, players who can hunt. That's something this team is. They were slow. They were soft in like mentality and everything. Yeah.
Passive.
Yes. And never dictating up front. And we still have questions about the secondary. This is a defense that's probably 2 years away still with some of the things. But, you never know. You have a lot of young draft picks last year. Those are the wild cards there. I said it with the Broncos last season. It's a Yahtzee roll for each of them. Are you going to roll Yahtzee on each of them? No, there's a scale of how much they can hit. But you could hit on multiple of these guys from last year, and that could really change the fortunes. On top, I know you always talk about it, Scott, the coaching difference. The coaching difference.
Well, that and it's you mentioned there's work to be done. Sure there is, but you got to start somewhere.
Yep.
You can't. I can't get to a championship caliber defense without making these kind of moves first. So I want to start with Walker. I don't want Jaylen Walker to get lost in this. Okay, he was the number 15 overall pick. If you watched the reaction, if you're here last night, we were absolutely on fire. We loved that pick. Loved the pick. Right guy, right time, right place. Fell to him at 15. I think the Falcons were a little surprised, honestly, that he was there at 15. 6'1", 245 pounds, sideline to sideline speed, can come off the edge. I mean, we've got a guy here that could be Dwight Freeney, Elvis Dumervil, DeMarcus Lawrence. I think is somebody that you've kind of comped him to at times. He'll play at 250. And he can do so many different things. He's just a spectacular chess piece that he's a defensive coordinator's dream, Nick.
Yeah. I mean, you always worry about those guys a little bit, not to be the negative guy. But if you I heard this from Lance Zierlein, so I'm going to steal it so shout out to Lance. But it's like, if you love the guy, he's a hybrid. If you don't like him, he's a tweener.
He's a tweener.
Yep. So the guys who don't fall, and I think this is the reason that somebody like him, with the highlights and everything, all top 10, especially with the character, he does fall to 15 in a class like this. He doesn't fall cleanly into a bucket, and you don't have every single one of the boxes checked from the pre-draft cycle, the testing, the size. But man, excited about him. He was my number, I think, 12 player on my big board for myself personally. So thought he was a heck of a player, and it's tough because he doesn't have a high floor because he might be homeless in terms of his position, but he does have a high floor because what he brings, he's very physical against the run. He has good processing, good block deconstruction, and his ability to close on space, A to B, is not as good as Micah Parsons, but it might be the second best in this class. So a heck of a player, and I'm really happy for Dom's in the house. His dogs, the Georgia guy in here, but Falcons fans are going to love the mental makeup and hearing this guy talk and having him in the building, without a doubt.
Well, we go live. We do the show live because we like having the conversation with y'all. So make sure you're hitting that like and subscribe button. By the end of the day, we should cross 7,500 subscribers on YouTube. I'm pretty excited about that because of the support that y'all have shown us. And I want to say hello to some folks who are in here nice and early. Like Austin, he says, I went to bed loving the Walker pick, woke up shocked at Pearce and realized it was a good move. Perhaps a Cousins or another player trade tonight. Maybe, maybe that the Cousins gets moved and you're picking again with another pick. Because you gave one up. When we talk about what did you give up, you gave up a 7th. Everything else was traded. Everything else was there was a return, a first for a first, a second for a fourth, and then you gave a 7th. We'll get into that in a minute. But we will see. Stephen B is here. Good to see you. Before, I don't know if you saw this one, Nick. Guess who gave the Falcons an F? I'll give you one guess. Who gave the Falcons an F for the James Pearce trade?
Seth Walder.
Seth Walder, ESPN. That dude, I'm not one of those, the referees are out to screw us. The announcers are biased. I don't do that because that's a universal truth. Every single fan base, there's a couple, our fans are different. No, you're not. In certain circumstances, you're all the same. You all think the announcers are biased. You all think the ref's out to get you. That's a universal truth. But by God, Seth Walder hates the Atlanta Falcons. He absolutely hates them. He called the Bijan Robinson draft pick inexcusable. It was absolutely inexcusable to use this. And, went on and talked about this in this last paragraph. Oh, by the way, they did get a 3rd round in return. I know I just killed them for giving up a 1st and 2nd for a 1st, but to trade up, they gave up a future 1st to move up from a 2nd to a 1st. I know I just slaughtered them for that, but oh, by the way, it actually was a 2nd and a 3rd pick swap instead of this. So it's just.
And I did share a graphic, Scott, if you want to pull that up, just for the people at home with the numbers. If you're a number person,
yeah, so I have one of those too. I was ready to do it when we were getting into it, but this is it. This is the trade, y'all, and then we're gonna get into some super chats. Oh no, my voice is going already after 3 hours yesterday. So excuse me.
Can I hand you one? Do you need?
Yeah, I got the halls right here.
Okay.
So what this ended up being, the Falcons and Rams swapped 1st-round picks. Okay, you take mine this year, I'll take yours next year. In order to do that, what the Falcons, the price they paid was they swapped a 2nd and 3rd and then sent them a 7th. Okay, now there was a pretty big difference between the 2nd and 3rd. There's a 50-point difference. That's almost 2 full rounds. So it's almost a 4th-round pick. But this is the deal. Now, looking up what did the Giants give up yesterday, who basically, Seth Walder gives these guys a B+ and an A- for their trade for Jackson Dart, who was ranked 150 on PFF's big board. The Texans got 2/3 to move back 9 spots. Nice job, Texans. I think that was the Giants absolutely paid more. The Falcons did a 4th and a 2nd pick swap and a 7th in order to get a 1st this year. That's the interest you paid. That's the interest.
And just a sidebar on that. You guys, I think, had alignment on moving up for James Pearce. The people were excited in that Falcons room. I don't know if you caught the room or heard anything about.
No, I think they wanted him at 15, and we're kind of taken by surprise that Jaylen Walker was there.
I think they had hoped to trade back and nab him, and then they took him. But I'm just talking about the Giants trading up for Jackson Dart. I don't think they had internal alignment about which quarterback to go get.
They shouldn't. This is a Kenny Pickett trade. He's okay.
Yeah,
he's not.
But I'm even talking. I don't think everybody agreed that Dart was the choice there. I think that was a Brian Daboll pick instead of a Joe Shane. So dead man walking kind of feel there. We'll see if they save their jobs. But that's from what I heard, a little bit of an internal struggle and some not happiness out there in East Rutherford.
But with the night to think about it and how to articulate this a little better, my thought on this is I don't think you can call this an overpay without using hypotheticals. Well, what if? Well, I can do that too on the other side of things. What if the Falcons tank and they end up 5-12 and it ends up being a top 10 pick? Well, then they got bigger problems. They're 5-12 and they're redoing a whole lot of things. They got bigger problems. What if James Pearce ends up getting 15 sacks and is a rookie of the year and he has a Jared Verse type season? What if that's the counter to that? Then it was a steal. Then it was an absolute steal. So throw out the hypotheticals. And I look at this and I say, this is a good deal for the Atlanta Falcons if they got for addressing a big time need. And a guy that they liked at 15 that they had targeted and like, trust your board. Now you can come in and question again, hypotheticals. Well, they should have taken this guy. I like this guy better. That's fine, but those are all hypotheticals. The pure mathematics here is this was a good deal for the Atlanta Falcons. It was a good deal for the Rams too. I'd maintain, Nick, that the Falcons actually paid more for Ruka Rohoro last year. That deal was, and I looked it up before we went in this, the Falcons moved up from 43 to 35, and it cost them number 79, and they got back 186. So they lost 100 spots in the draft to move up 8 spots. This one wasn't that expensive. No. It cost them more to get Rook last year than it did to get James Pearce this year. This was a good deal. This is a good deal. How it works out, we'll see. But this was a good deal.
The one kicker is that the variance on return on a future first is so wide that teams are willing to take a little bit less on paper because the actual hypothetical return can be so big. Like the difference in range in a first round pick, let's say Falcons end up picking the range being 14 to 28. That's the same, Scott, as a middle second round pick to like a early 5th round pick, like that in terms of value. So the first round pick on paper, it's a 1-for-1, right? But just because the unknown about where that first round pick slots, it's a little bit different. I understand the Falcons fans.
Those come into hypotheticals.
Yes. Yep.
And the hypotheticals on the other side of that is James Pearce could end up being all pro.
Yes, absolutely. I think just from the Rams perspective, though, and why some of the fans are a little apprehensive about it, it's a lottery ticket to a certain extent with much higher percentage for a high return comparison to other picks.
Yeah. And again, if it ends up being, you're hoping it's not going to be much more than a 15 or 16. But again, could you get the guy you wanted with 15 or 16 next year? And if you're drafting 15 or 16, again, a lot more things have gone wrong, and you're probably looking for a new coach, a new general manager. I'm not going into this season planning for the worst.
No.
I'm not going into the season thinking, oh no, what if we're 5-12? No, this team shouldn't be 5-12. I'm going in thinking I've got to address a ridiculous, that's a quote I've seen from NFL.com, ridiculous pass rush. And they did. Curtis coming in. Good to see you, Curtis. Thank you for the super chat, my friend. Says, morning, Nick and Scott. Best draft day I've seen as a Falcons fan in a while. Can we get back into the second round to get the top corner to go against the weapons the Bucs and Panthers picked up? Probably not. Unless you just want to give up your whole draft for next year.
The kicker would be.
I think you're done trading up. It was a little bit of a surprise they traded up anyway.
Yep.
They're not doing it twice.
The one thing I could see, Scott, would be, I don't know if it's going to get you back in the second round, but you could package that 3rd round pick with a Kyle Pitts to move up probably 40 slots, 50 slots. But that's about it. Unless you're talking about trading future capital again, which I would recommend against at this point. You're already very few on the number of picks. But yeah, thank you so much, Curtis, for the top 10. The other issue is that the cornerback falls off a cliff here. I am a little bit shocked. And what's one thing we talked about a lot, Scott? I think maybe somebody in the chat we've talked about too, the nose tackles, wanting a nose tackle for this defense because you don't have mass. So I'm like, well, Kenneth Grant probably go late first. Tyleik Williams maybe there in the middle of the second. Well, those guys went each about 15 picks earlier than I expected. And I love them both, but I was without pass rush juice. Typically, you don't see those guys go, especially with a guy like Jordan Davis not really getting the ROI you wanted for him going, 13 overall. But those big boys win. So we'll see about the nose tackle. There still are big bodies. There's not many two-gapping big bodies left. But trading up in the second, not likely unless you're packaging a player with it.
Yeah, and again, you're trading so low on those guys. Like your trade pieces right now that you don't really your trade pieces right now are Kirk Cousins, Kyle Pitts, Tyler Algier. The return on those guys right now is going to be late day 3, maybe a little bit higher for Kyle Pitts.
I'd say 4.
Yeah, maybe early day 3, but it's going to be low. that I think we're pretty much done until 101 is on the board, I think is the next time. So it's going to be a late night Friday night pick, but I think they're done. But that's okay. Now, one thing I think the Falcons have done a really good job at, Terry Fontenot's done a really good job, is finding serviceable defensive tackles for cheap. From Contavious Street, from LaCale London. It's not Abdullah Anderson. Abdullah Anderson, I always get the running back confused from way back, the other Abdullah. Yeah. But he ended up getting a nice big contract, I think, from the Commanders after having a great year with the Falcons. Those guys, they've done a really good job of finding those guys for cheap. Kind of counting on that. Gonna need a big guy to come in, and Street is a good pro. Dorless hopefully comes and steps up, and again, Onyemata. If I'm gonna have to run two, I think I'm gonna have to run two defensive tackles. Play a much tighter instead of a 5 wide split. Prevent defense. I think we're gonna have to get a little bit tighter and throw some more bodies at the run on early downs.
And to that point, Terry Fontenot in the post first round press conference did mention the 8th round of the draft being important this cycle and the undrafted free agents. So they're definitely guys that they're
incoming Desmond Watson and as a UDFA, 470 pounds of Desmond Watson. You want an anchor? There you go.
Yeah. And also there'll be guys like that are cut that are going to be good from other teams that you can possibly get as well. And I don't know if you know this about the NFL draft, like the 30 visit rule, but if somebody like played high school in your region, it doesn't count as a 30
Falcons
visit.
Had a 90-man local pro day.
I was going to say, because you're in one of the big benefits of being in Atlanta. It's also another big benefit of like the Jags and Dolphins and Saints and those teams are those hotbeds of high school talent that you can bring in some serious talent that doesn't qualify.
There was something like 15 Georgia kids, like UGA kids, like everybody there is like, well, why don't they do that? And then there was like 80 players at their local pro day.
That's incredible. I mean, that just speaks to the talent there.
Yeah, good job, high school director there and everything. Yeah. So good job, Atlanta Falcons, of getting the word out and getting people excited about it. Edward Brown, I would have loved being in the draft room. Thank you for the super chat, EB. Would love being in the draft room to see if going back up to get Pearce was a spur of the moment thing, given how the draft was falling, if it was something they had previously thought out.
So they talked about it in the press conference. I believe I did just listen to it once, and that was in a little bit of a haze because I was just waking up after staying up until like 1 o'clock last night. It's 5:30 or 5:50 now here where I'm at. But it sounded like after they took Jaylen Walker, they were on the phone a lot, just seeing what it would take to move up. And soon as I think it was the very next pick after it was obviously the 25th to 26th after the quarterback trade happened, that opened the gate for the Falcons to move up. What I think is more interesting, and this is just a benefit, Scott, of following the tip picks, is that pick at 15, a lot of the picks were coming in, like boom, 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 right away. Like I don't think anybody's ever turned in a card faster than the Colts did with Tyler Warren at 14. I was like, oh my gosh, it's already up. That's crazy. But the Falcons took the entire time. It already had like Goodell walking to the stage before anybody announced it on the internet. Falcons are very happy to have Jaylen Walker. I have no doubt about that. They love him. I think they didn't think he would be there. They really did like him. I think they were definitely working to trade back with the idea that they were really hoping, the plan had been to trade back and take James Pearce.
Yep.
So
I agree.
Yep. An offensive lineman.
But it worked out. And again, it was a buyer's market. They weren't going to get the return on a trade down that they wanted. I've wanted trade downs all the time. Going into this draft, I said it's going to be really hard. At 15, there's just not enough variance between prospects between 8 and 30 to trade down, to really trade down. And that's why I think the Falcons got pretty good value. They did a 4th and 2nd round pick swap to get a year jump on a 1st round pick. That's a pretty good deal. That's normally it would take that 2nd rounder or a future 2nd, a 1st and a future 2nd to move up, where in this case, it really only cost them the difference between the 2nd and the 4th. A pretty good deal. I want to get into a little bit of the, how they're going to line up and stuff. I see Dave's got a good question over on Facebook about the size, but Rusty says, I was just listening to Cowherd go scorched earth on the Falcons front office for the Pearce trade. It's really just a 1st round swap though. I liked it. Yeah. Again, to get Pearce, you needed, without going into hypotheticals, because I can counter it with the same hypotheticals. Now, to be fair, I've said a bunch when the Falcons try and go outside the box, it usually fails. This isn't really outside the box, though. You know, if you look at 2002 to 2018, the Falcons were drafting between 17 and 28 the entire time. It's time to get back there, okay? This should be a 20. Next year should be a 20. And could you have gotten a pass rusher that you're going to still desperately need? You've got to invest in this pass rush. Could you have gotten a pass rusher that you liked as much as James Pearce with 20 next year? Oh, by the way, he can help me this year. You know, so I do pay a little interest. And the interest on that trade is I move back from the second to basically the fourth. I know it's a third, but it's 100. So I'm going to call it a fourth. And let's, you know, understand that it's 100. It's late. Late third. That's the interest you paid. I'm okay with that. I am. Yeah. I'm absolutely okay with that, Rusty.
Yeah. I mean, again, there's always the risk that ends up being a blue chip pick. Like we've talked about, Scott, you cover the Auburn Tigers. Like if that ends up being a top 10 pick, that's, you know, your Keldrick Falk.
Keldrick Falk. Oh, damn.
Yeah. That kind of thing. You never know.
Again, if they're in range to draft Keldrick Falk, it all went bad. All went bad. And Keldrick Falk's not going to save him.
Yeah. Yep. I just, you know, I've now covered this team long enough that I'm starting to think, okay, what's worst case scenario? But the Falcons with sorry, I don't make you to spit out your coffee. You got me a cynical SOB here, but
welcome to the family, Nick.
One aspect that also makes us a little bit palatable. So we've talked about it from the angle of Terry Fontenot and Ryann Morris. Like that pick does them no good if everybody's fired, right? So get that in-house now to solve it and buy yourself more time and get some positive traction and direction with the team. But one thing that also makes this more palatable, Scott, is that you never really want to be trading future first-round picks unless you are making a move up for your quarterback or you have your quarterback. So this is also a belief, to me, shows belief in Michael Penix. Because if you are a team that's like, okay, well, we're trotting Kirk Cousins out there again this year. We don't have our quarterback. We can't take him this year. You better damn well not trade that future first because you're going to need that capital to maybe go make an aggressive move. You didn't have to trade up for your guy. You have him here. So you can be a little bit more floozy with that future first.
To that point, who doesn't have their quarterback of the future?
Yeah.
The Rams.
Yes. Oh, yeah. We talked about that.
The Rams. So the Rams could trade down. Now they've got an extra first next year that they can package together to go get a quarterback next year if they need to. Denver Luke, good to see you. Said morning, boys. Fun first round last night. Yes, it was. It was. Like I said, I've been buzzing. I'm excited for y'all. I'm excited for this team. I'm excited for Terry Fontenot. I'm excited for Jeff Ulbrich. I'm excited to see what these guys can do because, again, I have no doubt the style of play was going to change dramatically. It had to. It changed a little bit in the second half of the season last year, but there was still too many. It was 2-4-5s. Yeah, there were still too many 2-4-5 fronts, 2 defensive tackles, 2 light stand-up edges, 2 linebackers and 5 defensive backs. And it wasn't just the 5 defensive backs. Well, that sounds like a 7-on-7. It was 5 defensive back, 15 yards off the ball. It was, you'd see the TV shot, the television box shot, and you'd see 4 guys on defense there. Like, where is everybody? Oh, no wonder it's always second and 3. Man, it was painful, dude. It's gonna change. And now, we as Nick already hit on, we hit on it last night. Nick went through it again today. What have the Falcons really prioritized is 200-plus pound speed. Devon Diablo can fly. Jaylen Walker can get after it. And James Pearce is, as soon as he puts on a helmet, is going to be the most explosive outside presence you've got. Well done. Yeah. Wanted to go defense? We've gone defense, baby.
Yep. And thank you, Denver Luke. Lance Rendar said we got 2 pass rushers who at various times look like top 10 talents. I don't care about the trade value calculator created by some guy online.
I do.
Hey, as some guy online, I take offense to that.
I care. Yeah, I do care.
It would have been nice if you could have gotten pick 90 instead of 101 from the Rams, or if it could have been a future 2 and 3 instead of that first. I think I'd rather give up the 2 and 3 next year than the 1, just because, again, the sliding scale of what that could be. But still, you got two guys, and Scott, I think coming into today, I know you only have one pick. You do have your fourth rounder as well. You mentioned when you say those two lighter speed pass rushers on top of Diablo, you really do need to add some beef now, because speed and the small guys can only be weaponized if you get into those get off the field situations after winning on first and second down. And there are options, but I'm like, oh man, how do you optimize those guys? Because if it's 3rd and 3, the entirety of the drive, you're not going to get as much value there.
Yeah, and Lance, thank you for the super chat and the support, my friend. My friends just texted me, and like for 2 nights in a row, I've just sent him links to the show. He's like, "What are your thoughts on trading the first rounder?" Here's a link to the show. I'm talking about this right now, so I might do that again. Who are looked at as top 10 talents? I don't care about a trade. I do, because we're going to judge without hypotheticals. Again, that's what's key here. What if? We're not doing what ifs. Did you get value? Because that's your job as a general manager. If I'm constantly getting good value over a long enough timeline, I'm going to win. I'm going to have a good enough I'm going to have a good team. So every once in a while, it's okay to overpay, but I don't think this was an overpay at all. At all. I think teams that were trading up got good value. Even the Giants just trading 2/3 to get back up into the first. That doesn't happen, Nick. That typically doesn't happen, especially for a quarterback. So I am interested in it. And then I will always say, but you still never know. Those are the hypotheticals. If it ends up being a top 5 pick, well, damn. But on the flip side, James Pearce Jr. could also be a defensive rookie of the year type who stat pads and gets 10 sacks. Well, if that happens, then it certainly wasn't an overpay. So on paper, this was a good deal. Sammy, good to see you, Mr. Klontz. He says, I hope you don't mind to call you Sammy. So schedule drops in a couple of weeks. Can we take a look at opponents today? That isn't the number one thing on my mind, but how about Monday? Let's take a look at that Monday, unless you've got it pulled up, Nick, on who those guys are.
I do not. No, but I'm honestly not going to be thinking. The schedule release is coming May 14th, as what Sam talks about here, and it's going to take me a little bit. I haven't even looked at the actual how the first round played out and had time to process that, because I've been so siloed in the Falcons and the Broncos. So to digest that, it's going to take a little bit. But for a super, I mean, gosh, if I feel like we kind of have to at least talk a little bit about it. More big picture, I think. Where does this potentially change the dynamic for the Falcons in the NFC South? You're going to be able to play a little bit more aggressively, and hopefully you're going to be able to get after the quarterbacks in a division that, let's be real, Scott, the Panthers and the Buccaneers have 2 pretty good underrated offensive lines. So you got to be able to impact those quarterbacks and get after them, especially smaller guys like Baker. Baker's built, Baker and Bryce Young. So that's fun. You got some additional guys, and I'm just really curious how they're going to weaponize, specifically Jaylen Walker. What's the role? Where is he going to be on the field for them? It's going to be interesting.
It's going to free up Caden Ellis to be the joker of the defense that he was signed to be. He's been forced to play a more traditional inside linebacker role because of the injuries. But now I've got Divine Diablo and I've got Jalon Walker, who I can move around in different places.
Do you think this potentially opens up Anderson for a day 3 trade? I mean, he's been so injured. You brought in Diablo, you have Ellis, you have Walker. I mean,
he has 0 trade value.
I think you could get a day. I mean, 0
if it's a pick swap. See, I don't consider a pick swap. It's like, okay, we move from a 7th to a 6. I don't consider that a trade.
I could see you getting a 6 straight up for him because the athletic profile in a bad linebacker class.
Yeah, if you get a 6, and again, I'd rather hold on to the same thing as Kyle Pitts. He's not expensive. Kyle Pitts is a little more expensive, but the upside and the investment already is so high that I'm holding on, and I do believe the Falcons will hold on to Kyle Pitts. I don't think they're trading him. They got $30 million in a number 4 pick for my first ever draft pick. By God, I'm going to hold on as long as I can to see if I can get a return on that. He's still just 24 years old. I don't think Kyle Pitts is going anywhere. Yeah, I don't think Troy Anderson has enough value for a guy who's 6'3", 250 pounds that runs 4.4. I mean, he's still the most athletic guy on your team. I mean, on your linebacker room. Linebacker room is what I mean. Apologies. Yep. So there's still so much upside there that you're just, man, can this guy be healthy? But he's now gravy. if Troy Anderson's not on the field, my defense doesn't fall apart. You know, the last time we saw Troy Anderson, he was NFC Defensive Player of the Week in a win over the Saints. You know, so my defense now does not depend on Troy Anderson. It did last year. It depended a big part on him, and that was bad. Great to see you, Sam. 100 Realist coming in. He was thinking corner. He says, I like the trade, but I expected the pick to be Will Johnson. But I like the pick because we addressed something that has needed addressed for a long time. And again, you could double dip here. You got 2 pass rushers. We said after Jaylen Walker was going at number 46, don't be incredibly surprised if they go edge again. Well, they went edge again, and they traded up to do it in getting James Pearce Jr. So there's something going on with Will Johnson. He had a poor year and has not tested at all, coming off an injury.
There's medical.
He fell completely out of the first round.
Yeah, there's medicals with him. I think it might even be like cartilage in both his knees. The guys who had the medical red flags that were my highest remaining player on the board. Like there was a tier of themselves. And I'm like, man, talent says otherwise. So probably something going on. But Derek Harmon, I had 11 overall. He fell to 21. I had Jihad Campbell, I think, at 15. He fell to the 31. Eagles at 31, who traded up. And then I also had Will Johnson, I think, at 14, and he's out of the first round entirely. So medicals are big for these guys, and you never know. It varies from team to team.
So also, you didn't have stop sending me Jihad Campbell and Jared Wilson at 15 and 46. That's bad drafting.
I mean, Jihad, I think, was worthy of the pick without the medicals. But medicals change things, right? We don't have all the information.
Out of the first round, and he's giving it to us constantly and calling it the perfect pick. Man, that's not the perfect pick. He didn't just do a mock draft. He did a perfect pick. This is the perfect scenario.
Yeah.
Linebacker and center? Are you joking?
Yeah. But, I think it's the medicals that are huge for these guys at the end of the day.
The idea of Will Johnson made a lot of sense.
Yes. Yeah.
The reality of Will Johnson is there's something wrong there.
Yeah, maybe multiple things.
Yeah. You know, if you're getting, okay, this is a top 15 talent at cornerback, does he plug into the defense? Abso-freaking-lutely. Absolutely. It ain't Will Johnson. Like I said, the idea of Will Johnson is more appealing right now than the reality. The reality is he's out of the first round. The reality on Mike Green is there's going to be some PR problems with whoever takes him, and it's a lot easier to stomach if you don't use a first round pick on him.
And to that point, Scott,
quite as bad.
Yeah, and there was, a lot of stuff about James Pearce, obviously, being a little different. His team is meeting and he's in his dorm room, blah, 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 that kind of thing. Falcons did a lot of work on both these guys. I heard them mention, I think Ian Rappaport tweeted out that they had James Pearce and his mother in the facilities yesterday. So they were doing work on him, and they did a lot of work on Mike Green too. So Mike Green falls out of the first round entirely with the stuff that he had in his background. So we'll see what happens if he keeps falling. But that's a little surprising overall because he is talented. And we got George in Atlanta out here. Got the hat on, protecting himself from the sun. We don't mess with that melanoma. So shout out to you, George. Says, stunning that Jaylen Walker was only the 13th Georgia Bulldog drafted in Falcons history and the first drafted in the first round. I can't speak to the first draft in the first round, but I did see this factoid yesterday that Jaylen Walker is the first Georgia Bulldog drafted the Atlanta Falcons in the first and second round. So that's a lot of picks since 1966. That would be the Lyndon B. Johnson post JFK administration. Yep. So
the last day 2 pick, even I believe, was Akeem Dent in the third, and I covered him in like 2004 in high school. So that would have been about 2007, 2008. So we're talking 20 again. When you hit your 40s, you can lose an entire decade, and you're like 2008. That was 10 years ago. No, it wasn't. It's almost 20 years ago. But yes, it was George, the right guy, the right player, the right location, the right fit. This was a really good pick. Now, how does it work out? We'll see. There's no guarantees.
Yeah.
He could go completely bust. But I think is your process good? If your process is good over a long enough timeline, you will hit more than you'll miss, and you'll do good. You're fitting teams' needs. You're doing what's logical. You've got roster balance. This was the right pick at Jaylen Walker, and I'm excited for it. But yes, the missing on Georgia guys is it's strange that they've kind of ignored it. And it's strange. There hasn't always been a fit, but a lot of times there is. And why not? If I've got a tie, why not just tip the balance a little bit to the Georgia guy? Yeah. I saw someone say one time, it's like, oh, well, they thought it might be hard to cut a Georgia guy. Baloney. They're already catching flack for not taking a Georgia guy to begin with. Yeah. Brandon Yowler, good to see you, Brandon. That feels like a newer name to the Super, so we're glad you're here. He says, being a lifelong Falcons fan, I was waiting for them to pick up a first-round water boy at this point. Who do you think the targets are in future rounds now for? If someone please take Cousins. Yeah, maybe you can get a day 3 for Cousins over the course of the next 24 hours, and you can pick up a 6 or something. And, when you talk about who are some of the targets in future rounds, I'm looking at, again, at that point, with my 4th rounder, I'd like to get a safety or a defensive tackle.
Yep.
A big body. So I would like to target something. I would like to target a safety or a defense or a big body in the 4th round. Right now with 2 7ths, I just need somebody I think who can play. I'm okay with a wide receiver. I'm okay with a developmental offensive tackle. I'm okay with a center. Probably anything but running back at this point.
Yeah, some names I'll toss out here as far as your nose tackles. And you get far enough down the board, it's like, oh, that guy was projected to be a early 5th. Like, well, you're late 3rd. If it depends team by team, scheme by scheme. So it gets much more varied. But somebody you've mentioned, Scott, that I think is in play in that range, Cam Jackson, defensive tackle, nose tackle from Florida, 6'6", 330 pounds. Another more of a absolute fire plug. He's 6'2", 340 pounds. Jay Toye from UCLA. Keeping an eye on him. You got Jordan Phillips from Maryland, Jamari Caldwell from Oregon. You also have CJ West from Indiana. Those are all guys that I think those are all plugs that in that late 3rd, early 4th, I'm expecting them to come off the board from 90 to 130. Almost all of them, unless there's medicals. That's always the or character stuff. As far as safeties go, Scott, there's going to be a number of safeties potentially in that range too. You got one of the smartest players in the class, from what I've gathered, Jonas Sanker from Virginia. Like watching his tape, it's hilarious because pre-snap, you pretty much see him redirecting his safety compatriot out there being like, no, you're in the wrong spot. Let me get you lined up here. So he knows everybody's job out there from Virginia. Really physical player. You got Andrew Makuba from Texas, transferred from Clemson. He's small, but I don't think he's going to have a long career because how violent he plays. It's kind of like the Bob Sanders effect. Like you hit way too hard and have way too much disregard for your body for the frame that you have, but by God, you bring in energy. So Makuba is an interesting one. There might be some cornerbacks there, although I think cornerback dries up pretty well. And as far as wide receivers, again, it's so hard to say that late. I really like Kyle Williams. I wouldn't be surprised if he's one of the first 10 picks off the board today. You got the Iowa State guys and Jalen Nolan, Jaden Higgins.
Where does Shedeur go?
Shedeur?
Does he go Levitt and he's the first pick today?
I don't know. The thing, maybe Scott, because the Browns are sitting there with the 2nd pick today because now the Texans, I believe, will be on the clock with the first one after that trade. But the Browns, in their trade with the Jags, picked up 2 first-round picks next season. So that's prime capital, especially with what they look like on paper, to be one of the teams to dictate the early rounds to go get your quarterback of choice. Although the way the draft goes now, if you don't get that number 1 pick, you're probably not getting your quarterback of choice. So they might get it anyway. But
take him anyway, and it doesn't preclude you from going number 1 overall next year.
I'm with you. You also have to take into effect the potential circus effect with Shedeur Sanders and everything that comes with that. So again, I think he's fine to go there. I would understand bypassing with those 2 first-round picks in your pocket. I'm on Saints watch. I'm still on Steelers watch here. The Rams now have multiple day 2 picks. Maybe they go up and get him. You also have Jalen Milroe still available, Tyler Shuck. So I don't know. We're on Shedeur watch today. It will be interesting to see what happens. But yeah, you got options. I think defensive tackle, defensive back, wide receiver. It's probably your area to attack today with your pick.
Gosh, Nick, we're 40 minutes into this thing already. It's just flying by. So you've got any burning desires you to get in, make sure you get them in. We're got about 15 or so minutes before we get out of here. Jeremy Barr saying, I love guys who love ball. Is Pearce that guy? Pearce says he is. You watch his highlights, and he certainly gets after it like he loves it. Is it sporadic? But I don't think you've got a pressure rate the way he does, and the production that he's had, unless he loves to play the game. Now, does he put in all of the same effort off the field? I don't know. But when he's on the field, his ears are pinned back. He's pretty feisty out there. And again, he's somebody the Falcons just flat out don't have. I don't necessarily need him as like, oh, well, his run defense is poor. Fine.
Mm-hmm.
I need a guy on third down. I can stack bodies for run defense. I need a guy who can get after the damned quarterback in pass situations. And even when the Falcons started racking up numbers last year in the last third of the season, they weren't doing it on 1v1 wins. Mm-hmm. They were scheming guys, and they were sending guys, and guys were coming free, and there were some coverage sacks in there. There was not much my guy beat your guy and wins in there. There just weren't. The Falcons don't have those guys, Nick.
Yeah.
Yeah.
As far as his Pearce, that guy, we'll find out. Go ahead. Sorry.
You're up. I think you're on a little bit of a delay. Go ahead.
Oh, yep. We'll find out about Pearce. All the same. But one thing I can say is that this wasn't just a willy-nilly pick. They put in the work on him. Him and Mike Green, they did a lot of work on the background and the characters. So we'll see how it plays out. Excited to see them pin their ears back again. I do think your speed rushers are only as good as the third down pass rush opportunities you get at the end of the day. But who knows? We'll see what Jeff Ulbrich does. And you added two players that a lot of people at some point throughout the draft process thought were top 10 picks. So premium players at premium positions with some question marks all the same. My final thing I did want to touch on, Scott, just, the tinfoil hat. What does it mean? Since we did have those tip picks, I just keep coming back to it. They love Jaylen Walker. They used the entirety of that time to move back. Why was that? And then moving up for Pearce. I think that they would have loved that extra capital all the same. They did really like Walker, and they didn't get the capital where it's like, well, Walker's just too good. Culture guy. We're not getting the trade offers that we wanted. We'll take him, and then we'll see how the board falls. I think the plan was always to trade back from 15. They might have had a few in place, especially with the tight end, Warren, being there. I think once Warren went off, that might have switched things up a little bit. Like, oh, if Warren's there, we'll call. The Colts were a pivot point for that. But I think their plan was to trade back and end up getting James Pearce in the end. And how the board falls, Walker's there. They end up going to get the guy that they had targeted anyway, just by different means.
Yeah, again, we said for 6 months that ideally this team would be the best thing would be to trade back and pick up a couple, at least one extra day too, and then I can address a couple other places. Instead, by God, if Terry sees a hole, he hammers it. We need a quarterback. Yeah, look at it's the dirtiest thing I've said all day. We need a quarterback. Let's go get 2. We need an edge rusher. Let's go get 2. I like it. 3. I mean, Leonard Floyd is an upgrade on Lorenzo Carter as far as a pure pass rusher goes.
Yep.
So the pass rush from the outside should be a lot better. Now the inside has not gotten better, not yet. But we'll see. But it should be. It should be, because again, you're not playing. The 2 defensive tackles were facing 4 blockers all the time. They were double teamed constantly, and then your outside guys couldn't win. So this should be better. And now I'm moving Caden Ellis and Jaylen Walker and Devon Diablo and maybe even Troy Anderson around a bunch of different ways. And those are big, fast athletes.
I do think, though, you have to add some mass up front. I don't think you can weaponize those guys with how it currently stands, because I don't think you have somebody who has a literal gravity to them on the interior defensive line. I think Rook can be a good player because of the length and the impact, but I don't think he is so massive that he is just going to eat space and free those guys up. So, and you can find those pluggers, but I think that's like really important with the body types you have in the front 7 now.
Real quick, and then I'll get to Sammy here, because David was asking this as well, and I know it's a concern. I see a lot of 4-man fronts on run situations with extra linebackers there too. But this defense, the body type is set up right now for Rook and Onyemata inside a defensive tackle, for Zach Harrison out at one of the ends, and for Morgan Fox out at one of the ends. The lightest of those guys is Morgan Fox, and he's a really good run defender. Mm-hmm. Zach Harrison's 290 pounds, and then you've got right at 300 on both guys. So I'm lining up 275, 300, 300, 290 on a 4-man front on 1st and 10. Okay, so I'm okay with that. It's like, and that's why I said yesterday, y'all, don't get too caught up in, are we a 4-3 or are we 3-4? Yes, you're also a nickel, you're a dime, you're all of those things. You've got the versatility in your defense. You're starting to add the pieces where you can do a bunch of different things depending on down and distance. And the word that Nick used earlier, where you can start to dictate. You can start attacking. These guys can't run on us. I'm throwing in my NASCAR package in at 1st and 10, and I'm attacking the line of scrimmage. They don't have a wide receiver that scares me. I got 11 guys on the box. Let's run punt return formation against these guys and just go after the backfield. So there's a lot more weapons to be versatile on defense with. And Jeff Ulbrich said right out of the gate, we're going to be multiple. So don't get too caught up in, are we a 3-4 or are we a 4-3? The answer to that is yes. You're going to be a lot of things.
Yep. And I see a lot of call for Ty Robinson in the chat from Nebraska. He's an interesting player, but he's more of your 3-4 defensive end body type, penetrating, that like 200
Senior Bowl yesterday. I was like,
He's a little stiff.
I mean, he's a lot stiff.
He's explosive linearly, and he is a heck of a culture player. As much as that hurts me because I despise Nebraska, literally despise them. Did you know they were called the Bug Eaters before the Cornhuskers? Fun fact. That's reality. But
FSU was an all-girls school before they weren't.
Wow. No,
there's another one.
Okay. Well, we love it. Here, we're getting here with the facts. Sam talks about the trade landscape, Cousins, Pitts, Ramsey. I don't think you're trading for Ramsey now that you traded a future first, and you need to hold on to your picks. You have to fill out so many guys on the roster. Ramsey makes sense for a team. Like I think about an old cornerback like Ramsey and the contract you're bringing on. That's a cherry on top. Like we are ready to go. What's the missing piece? Rams traded out of that first round pick. I wouldn't be shocked at all to see Ramsey back in LA with the Rams. As far as Cousins, I'm expecting that day 3. Pitts, I think you're holding on to him. Do you want to take away weaponry? And also because of his pedigree, he could wind up getting you a decent pick if you do let him walk compensatory wise. So who knows with that front, but I'm expecting Cousins day 3. I'm not expecting Ramsey. Pitts, you probably hold on to.
I think you hold on to Pitts. I just don't see him being moved. There's too much invested in him. There's too much upside. He's too young. Cousins is old and unwanted. Welcome to the club. He's old and unwanted, and he wants out. And at best, I think you get a 6th and maybe $10 to $15 million in salary cap relief, and hopefully that happens. I'm ready to talk about things other than Kirk Cousins too, other than the casual Kirk Cousins sacked 10 times with Vikings in backup role, something like that. Evan was our final super chat of the day, unless anybody else comes in late. And Evan's not particularly happy with this trade. He says, considering the Giants gave up half of what the Falcons did and got their quarterback, we definitely got fleeced. And if this fails, we just gave away a top half pick for the next GM. Okay. So I want to bring up this graphic again, because as far as, again, there's a phrase for like when you start a conversation with a fallacy, it's failed to begin with. So by saying this, the Giants gave up half of what the Falcons did to move up. That's not true. So that's not true. What the Falcons did, they swapped first round picks. And again, talking about hypotheticals, if this fails, that's a hypothetical. That's not a fact yet. That's a maybe. The maybe is also James Pearce could turn into the next Lawrence Taylor. For Falcons fans, it's more likely that it's a top 5 pick. I get it. But the facts are the Giants traded 2/3 to move up 9 spots. That's what they gave up. They gave up 2/3 to move up 9 spots. The Falcons swapped a 2nd on a 4th and traded a 7th to move up 1 year. That's what they gave up. They gave up their third round pick for a 2nd round pick and gave a 7th. The Giants paid more. Absolutely. The Giants absolutely paid more until we get into hypotheticals, which we can't do.
No.
There's counters to every hypothetical. The reality is they swapped a 2nd and 3rd pick and gave a 7th to move up a year. That's the reality. And I don't think that's a fleecing. I do not.
No. Yeah. Again, I mean, I understand fans being concerned about the future first because that is a lottery ticket. And if things go off the rails in Atlanta, that could be one that really hurts him. You don't have to look very far. We all love the misery of the Saints giving up a future first, and that first and future second winds up and going on to be, gosh, Scott, talk about sliding doors moment in the NFL. But they trade with the Eagles, and the Eagles, the 2 picks they get back, future picks they get back from the Saints, end up being Jalen Carter, Cooper DeJean. Holy bleep! I mean, God, that is a NFL landscape history changing trade there. So you don't want that to happen. But the fans are here no matter what, right? We're not going to get fired. My seat isn't getting hot. But Raheem Morris and Terry Fontenot, that pick does them no good if they're fired next season. So this will help the 2025 Falcons without a doubt. But man, a lot on the line now. They better get it done. I do wonder if do you think this will have an impact on their chances of getting fired? Does it make it harder, or does it make it more likely that they're fired? Does it make it less likely? Because expectations are higher now, but do you want to bring in a new regime if it's a high first round pick and settle them without that option? I mean, it's less wanted, I guess.
I think it's the same because now you've taken an even bigger swing. You're all in. You've given up some interest. Yes, it costs you something. It costs you moving back 50 spots in next year's draft to fast forward your first round of this year. That's what it costs you. It costs you moving from that was the cost, about 50 spots on day 2. Yeah. Okay, well, that means I have higher expectations now, and if I fail, the failure is bigger. So 8 and 9, I've said 7 and 10, we're changing everything. 8 and 9 is a maybe. 9 and 7 and a possible wild card. They're probably safe. Now I think 8 and 9, and they might be switching everything over again. It's like you've done all this, you've spent all this money, you've got everything that you've wanted. I mean, Arthur Blank pretty much gives you everything you want, gives you the permission to do all this, and you've gone 5 years without a winning season. I think that's what it's going to take. So I would lean the 8 and 9. I would now lean to regime change.
Yeah. We'll see how it plays out, but yeah, a lot of fun. What am I looking for day 2? Still stacking premium position. I saw somebody in the chat say they won't go cornerback because they're already deep there. Outside of your top cornerback, I don't think any of them should keep you from adding a cornerback. I'm coming from watching the Broncos, right? Who are pretty good at secondary.
What did you think about that pick? Did that surprise you? I would think getting Jahdae Barron surprised you a little bit.
Oh yeah, I mean, everybody's saying there was no mocks that had Barron going in the first round ever. I did have Barron to the Broncos in one of my first rounds, but that was because of the process I used where I did 11 different 3-round mocks, and my goal was to use a different player every time because the draft is only
so many guys. I mocked that guy. Well, you did 20 mocks. I know.
Yeah. Yep. I did write-ups on 11 different mocks of different prospects every time, but that's because the draft is unpredictable, and it's not just a fill your whole fill your biggest need process by any means. It's a balancing act of positional value, cultural fit, evaluation. And when the pick happened, Broncos country was losing their mind because everybody was so into a hissy Trevion, about running back or wide receiver. To me, that says that the Broncos freaking loved Jahdae Barron as a prospect. They did not expect him to be there. And the Broncos, you can never have enough. I'm more of a defensive line guy, but you can also never have enough cover guys that you trust as well. Barron was considered a top 11 to 12 guy by many in the class, and he falls to 20. It's just a value perspective and amplifying a strength. So I don't have any issue with it at all. And we're going to go talk about the Broncos pick in the draft at large here over on Huddle Up with my guy, Eric Trickle. So did miss you covering the Broncos stuff there at the end, Scott, but that's okay. Had a lot of fun on the Falcons stuff. And no show probably tomorrow.
Are you doing a Broncos for breakfast today?
Yes, right after this.
Okay. What time are you going? Are you going at 45?
As soon as we're done here, I'm gonna go get some more coffee.
You're welcome to go. If obviously, so appreciate all that. And Evan J, again, there's no guarantee that this pick doesn't blow up in your faces. It's very possible. Again, but to me, that's getting into hypotheticals.
Yep.
And we can't. I'm not going to grade on this on hypotheticals just yet because hypotheticals can go both ways. Just straight value. This was not a fleecing. This was. I got a first. I gave up a first. In order to get the first this year, when I need a pass rusher now, it cost me a pick swap between an early second and a late third and my seventh. That's what it cost. That's not overly expensive. So, as far as will it work out, we will see. That depends on James Pearce Jr. That depends on how that works out.
Yep. My big takeaway, though, Scott, still just having watched the Broncos and their undersized speed rushers, those guys are not allowed to be truly weaponized unless you're doing the dirty work on first and second down and earning those obvious drop back pass rush situations. So can it be with Onyemata, Ruka with the scheme up front? It's possible. You don't have many true 300 guys. I know it's going to be more 4-3. I still would like a early down one technique, right? Not your classic like Casey Hampton, but like a one technique up front. Probably more one gapping because the two gapping length guys are not outside of Alfred Collins. This class, there's not many more. But still, I think that needs to be, if you're going for it this season, there has to be some eating up front of space and doing the dirty work. It's going to be a utility player to a certain extent that'll fill that, but it's a necessary piece to maximize what you have. And
I can find that with the fourth. I can find that.
There will be options.
You know who might have been a nice little fit for that? Zion Logue.
Yeah. Yeah, he's a 7th round pick for a reason, but maybe. I mean, he'd be an option.
But you've only got 4th and 7th now, so
but they'll be.
Oh, actually, you have 1 7th now. You got a 4th and a 7th now.
Yep, but the way the draft sets up, that 3rd and 4th round pick, there'll be some nose tackles available. I have no doubt about that, and potentially after the draft as well. So a lot of fun. Man, Scott, I kind of a fever dream yesterday. I'm like doing the show over at Mile High Huddle, and I'm like, the Falcons traded up. What the Colin Scott? Like Chad's messaging me. I need the gut punch right now. It's like, I'm live with Scott. It was like, why are you live with Scott? I'm like, the Falcons traded back up. Oh, bleep. Wow. Okay. Well, get it to me later. So
it was
so
good,
fun.
It was good for business. It was good for business. So get out of here. Have a good show. The Broncos defense is going to be scary next year. So we'll see you later. If you want to follow Nick, make sure you get him Nick Kendall and MHH and go over to youtube.com/Mile High Huddle. I'm going to close out this show, so stick around for just a moment. We'll see you later, Nick.
Peace, guys.
All right, so we're going to close out the show here. Let me click on that button so I'm not so crazy here. But yeah, the final takeaways I have on this is one more pick left, basically. Maybe you can get lucky in the 7th, and then maybe there's another day 3 pick coming with a Kirk Cousins trade. That'd be nice. Get that done. Let's just – there's good vibes at Flowery Branch right now. Let's just keep them going. Let's just move the I'm not going to say he's a malcontent. He's got reasons for not wanting to be there anymore. It's justified. They don't want him. He doesn't want to be there. Let's just go ahead and move that out there, save a couple bucks, and get one more pick out of it and have some fun. This has been a very good day 1. The Falcons got better yesterday. That's kind of how I always judge things. Did you get better? Yes, you did. Did you pay too much to get better? I don't think so. I'm really looking forward to see what Jeff Ulbrich can do with some of these new pieces. And like Nick says, I'm still concerned. I'd like another big body up front. And when I look at the potential starters in the defensive secondary, it's the same guys as last year for the most part, which weren't good enough last year either. We were upset when they did not address the secondary at all until an injury happened and they went and got Justin Simmons. We said that was a little bit naive. We questioned, are there too many defensive backs coaches here that are arrogant enough, and I mean that in a good way, that they can coach these guys up? But if I look at the starting secondary and I go in a 5-man defensive backfield, I go AJ Terrell, okay. Jordan Fuller, I think might not be a better player than Justin Simmons, but I think he'll be better just because Justin Simmons was in a bad scheme. Jesse Bates, good. And then cornerback and nickel corner, Mike Hughes and D. Alford with Clark Phillips mixing in there. That's not enough. I absolutely want 2 more defensive backs. But I want another corner in there to come in and compete. Got to invest there as well. If they do it in the 4th round, you can't get 2 guys with 1 pick. So, real smart there, Scott. But I'd be interested in corner or, a true 320-pound defensive tackle nose guard in the 4th. That's what I'm looking. And Dave says, Helms will be back. Well, one, he's a safety, not a corner. And 2, he's got 4 games under his belt as a professional, and he's coming off a knee injury, and he's a late day 3 pick. So I don't have high expectations for Helms. If he shows up and plays great, awesome. But kind of like Braylon Trice, there's no track record there, and he's a day 3 edge. If I want to go edge, I got to get him in the first round. That's just, from a probability standpoint. There are exceptions, I know. But I'm not counting a whole lot on Helms. Helms, Braylon Trice, those guys are gravy. Troy Anderson, for that point. Those are 3 guys I'm not counting on, but could surprise us. They could absolutely surprise us, because my expectations for them are reserves, spot players coming off injuries, et cetera, et cetera. So that's where I am on those guys. I need more investment. I need more. Again, the C word I want to hear this year isn't comfortable. It's competition. I need more competition in those spots. I need more competition in the secondary. I need more competition in the defensive front. I've got competition at linebacker and edge now. Thank God. Aren't we excited about that? For sure. So on that note, guys, I'm going to get out of here. I want to say thank you again for all of your support. We've got a bunch of people watching today. If this is your first time in, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button so you can get alerts when we do stuff like go live with breaking news. Like, hey, the Falcons just traded back into the first. Holy bleep. But Curtis, thank you, my friend. Curtis is here. He's a regular here all the time. Big supporter of the show. EB, Rusty Moore. Rusty's feeling good. I'm happy for you, Rusty, because I know it's possible to get down on this stuff. And Rusty, you're excited now too, and I'm looking forward to seeing these guys play. Denver Luke, always a big supporter of everything Nick and I do, whether it's Broncos or Falcons. Lance, thank you, sir. Appreciate you. Sam, again, also one of the guys who's in here all the time. 100 Realist, good to see you. George in Atlanta feels like a newer name. Welcome, and thank you so much. Brandon, good to see you again too. Jeremy Barr, and then Evan J closing us out with a good discussion. Again, we don't have to agree. That's okay. These are opinions, but it was a good discussion. I can admit that you have a point. You admit that I have a point, and then we disagree. Good discussion on this. Great discussion, everybody. Look forward to seeing you in the comments, and look forward to seeing you Monday as we wrap up the full draft. Friday is fun. Thursday night was fun. Let's come back on Monday and not try and make excuses like we did last year with, this is a redshirt class. No, I'm excited. I hope you are too. Y'all have a great weekend. Thanks for being here, everybody.